Did you reach any opinions or conclusions as to whether the damage to the right rear tail light of the subject vehicle is consistent or inconsistent with an impact to a right arm during a high-speed reversing maneuver?
It was inconsistent.
The location and orientation of the laceration on John O'Keefe's right forearm and arm are consistent with the geometry and orientation of the right taillight of the Reed 2021 Lexus LX 570.
It's the battle of the reconstruction experts. So who is more believable? Well, we've got the reconstruction expert from Alec Murdaugh's trial joining us live to weigh in. Plus, drug-fueled hotel nights. Alleged victim Jane resumes her spot on the witness stand in Diddy's criminal case. And our power panel gives us their takeaways on her testimony so far. And a manhunt underway this morning for a father who allegedly murdered his own 3 daughters. Police are releasing brand new images of the accused killer, and we're asking, how can authorities capture him safely? Also this hour, the Daybell defense cult mom crossing the man she allegedly tried to kill, her former nephew Brandon Boudreaux, but not before she was thrown out of the courtroom. We'll show it to you. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you, and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. We planned a wonderful show for you, so let's get started. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. 3 little angels. Peyton, Evelyn, and Olivia Decker, 9, 8, and 5 years old. These precious innocent sisters were allegedly killed by the man who helped bring them into this world. My friends, I had hoped that Travis Decker would be captured over the weekend, but unfortunately, he's still at large this morning. And we're going to be talking about how to capture him safely later in the show. But right now, I want to focus on these beautiful girls. I can't imagine how terrified they were when their father allegedly zip-tied their hands and put bags over their heads. Officials say those sweet girls were suffocated to death. Why were they even allowed to visit with him in the first place? Travis Decker was experiencing homelessness at the time, and that is very sad. But his daughters had a safe, permanent home with their mother. So why did the court permit visitation under those present circumstances? To me, that was a very risky and unsafe decision. Olivia, Evelyn, and Peyton Decker should be alive today. I pray that all the men and the women in law enforcement stay safe as they continue working to capture the girl's father. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
If you're going to introduce how you have great character and good character, we're going to have a short hearing on what evidence that they can bring in to rebut that character, which could include being convicted of 4 murders. So
and would you
talk
like
to your advisory counsel during the break? And
you don't need to yell at me either.
I'm at you, okay?
Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk to me that way. I'm very courteous. I'm very courteous to you.
No, you have been nothing near courteous to me during the course of these proceedings.
In Arizona, we've got testimony resuming in cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell's attempted murder trial. She cross-examined her former nephew, Brandon Boudreaux, who is the victim in this case. And we're going to have more on that coming up for you later in the show. If you're planning to watch this afternoon, 1:30 p.m. Eastern roughly is going to be the time that you will see it. Now, in New York City, we've got alleged victim Jane returning to the stand this morning in Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking and racketeering case. Court's going to start up there at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And in Massachusetts, we've got the defense's crash reconstruction expert testifying and defendant Karen Reed's retrial. He's going to be back on the stand for more redirect examination. And it really may come down to the battle of the experts in the case. Dr. Daniel Wolf from the company ARCCA testified on Friday, telling the jury that he tested 2 different scenarios for the shattered taillight. He used a potato cannon to determine a drinking glass would have to be projected 37 miles per hour in order to create similar damage to Reed's SUV. In the second scenario, he used a crash vehicle into a crash dummy to illustrate what happened to Officer John O'Keefe the night that he was found dead in the snow.
Did you reach any opinions or conclusions as to whether the damage to the right rear tail light of the subject vehicle is consistent or inconsistent with an impact to a right arm during a high-speed reversing maneuver?
It was inconsistent.
You chose a arm from a Hybrid 3 crash dummy, didn't you?
Yes.
You knew that his arm weight would be 11.8 pounds, didn't you?
Yes.
And you knew that he was 6'1" tall.
Yes. It was representative enough, yes.
Instead of choosing the 12-pound arm, which is 0.12 difference, you chose a much lesser weight, didn't you? How about 9.38? You keep coming up a little bit. 9.38 pounds.
All right, so we saw the Commonwealth's crash reconstruction expert testify in their case in chief, testifying that Officer John O'Keefe's arm injuries were consistent with being struck by a Lexus SUV. He did his own demonstration using a Lexus SUV. He put blue paint on his arm to show where the elbow would hit, explaining those injuries that have been so widely talked about. So who is more believable? Dr. Daniel Wolf or Dr. Judson Welcher? We all have opinions about this, right? Well, let's bring in someone who is a crime scene reconstructionist, one of the arguably very best in the country. He was the breakout star witness in Alec Murdaugh's case. Dr. Kenny Kinsey is on the program today. Good morning, Dr. Kinsey. Wonderful to see you.
Morning, Miss Julie.
Could we start, please, with the defense, since that's kind of top of mind for everybody, and we're going to be seeing Dr. Wolf come back on the stand this morning. As you were watching him on Friday, tell us, please, some of the things that jumped out to you and why.
Miss Julie, all recons have limitations, and Dr. Wolf's, I believe, was a very good reconstruction. I just believe he and Dr. Welcher concentrated on two different aspects. Where Dr. Welcher concentrated on the medical legal part of John O'Keefe's injuries, Dr. Wolf concentrated on the damage to the tail light. And the mechanics were, much different. I found Wolf a little bit evasive with admitting those limitations, and we can't always get it exactly right. I'm a little bit, more forthright. No, I can't exclude two shooters. I believe they had to pull it out, but I think in the end, the prosecutor did a great job on cross. But I found Wolf's methodology sound. I just think they concentrated on two different areas.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you for that, Dr. Kinsey. I have a clip from the cross. Let's take a little look at a sample of how that went.
So you would not want to know the body position. That's what you're telling us. You don't want to know that.
Well, if the evidence indicates that the contact is inconsistent, then that's kind of where the reconstruction stops. You can't go to a point of impact and a point of rest if there was no contact.
So you don't want to know the body position.
Objection.
Can you answer that?
I don't understand his question, Your Honor.
Would you want to know the body positioning?
Objection. This is 5 times.
And this time we'll get an answer, and that'll be it.
You got an answer every single time.
Can you answer that, Dr. Wolf?
I feel like I've answered it the best I can, Your Honor.
Okay, next question.
You don't like that question?
Objection.
Sustained. Strike.
Dr. Kinsey, how key do you believe John O'Keefe's body position is to these reconstruction efforts?
Ms. Julie, in any reconstruction I do, that's one of the main questions you want to answer. And that's what I noted in respect to not giving up those limitations. I believe it's going to be key. I believe it's very key. But as I said, he's just concentrating on a different aspect, and it just depends on what the jury thinks.
Right. And there was a little look, we were playing the video just as you were talking, with the crash dummy that was used versus what Dr. Judson Welcher did. He did the paint demo, and it was he himself behind the SUV. We have a little clip of Dr. Welcher on the stand. Let's take a look at that together now.
I did this at very low speeds, and you'll see, and we'll throw this from 2 different angles. That's me showing I'm doing test 2 This is from a camera that we have pointing down at it. This is the speed. You'll see it's only about a 2-mile-an-hour impact. But even a 2-mile-an-hour impact redirects me back and causes me to rotate and take a step.
Dr. Kinsey, would you assess the Commonwealth's expert, please, and his analysis, what he did here? Your thoughts?
Truly, geometry and orientation. He mentioned it. He put his methodology up front. He explained it. He gave the limitations. And I believe we also have to look at the definition of consistency. Sometimes you have a problem. I realize these experts, including myself, you can't ask the question and answer the question. So sometimes it's dependent on what the attorneys ask you, but they need to know up front, ask me or don't ask me certain things because this is going to be the answer. And you're always running a risk, as they did with the weight of the arm with Wolf. You always run a risk of the other side, the opposing counsel, bringing up that question. And any expert that is ethical should tell the truth and give the correct answer. And I don't believe you can depend on your definition of consistent to evade that answer.
Mm-hmm. This is really helpful. Dr. Kinsey, tell me, between the two, who would you say was more precise in their analysis?
Ooh, that's a tough one, Miss Julie. Like I said, there were limitations to both, but my personal opinion, after watching the complete testimony of both experts, I believe Dr. Wolf's reconstruction complemented Dr. Welcher's, and I believe it showed a possibility of the mechanics of John O'Keefe being allegedly struck by the defendant's vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting you say that, Dr. Kinsey. I saw some of the comments on Friday after court had concluded with people saying something similar, that, wow, this really paints the picture of contact with the car, whereas we know Karen Reed's defense team since the very beginning was saying, we know who did this, it was somebody else, he was in the house, blaming a bunch of innocent people. They were saying there was no contact with the car. Were you surprised at all that we saw this presentation that was very different than Trial 1? We didn't see anything like this with the dummy and the reconstruction in Trial 1. Did it surprise you that they went down this road?
I think sometimes your efforts can really hinder getting your opinion across. And I think they would probably rethink it if we could go back to Thursday. But as with Dr. Welcher, he put the limitations up front. He was looking at geometry, orientation, and I believe Dr. Wolf's presentation, at least, presented possibilities that Welcher was correct in his opinion.
Well, that's fascinating, and that gives us a lot of insight and perspective to use as we watch the rebuttal. I would imagine that Hank Brennan's probably going to call him again to clean up any areas or refute anything they think is problematic. We'll watch for some of the things you've said this morning, Dr. Kinsey, to appear. Brilliant analysis, as always, from you. Thank you for taking the time to come on Opening Statements today. We'll see you soon, my friend. You're the best. And still ahead here on Opening Statements, here's what we've got.
Jane, what would Sean give you, if anything, to keep you awake to keep having sex with the entertainers?
Ecstasy.
About how much ecstasy would you usually take in a single hotel night?
A lot.
Alleged victim Jane details drug-fueled hotel nights with Diddy. She's back on the stand in just about 45 minutes. Plus, an alleged daughter killer at large. We'll tell you where the search stands for this Washington father and what happens if he's captured.
Travis, if you're listening, this is your opportunity to turn yourself in. Do the right thing, do what you need to do, and take accountability for your actions. We're not going to go away, we're not going to rest, and we're going to make sure we find you. You will be brought to justice.
Karen Reed is in the midst of the retrial of the century.
She is factually innocent. She's guilty.
There's something wrong in this county.
Come at me.
John O'Keefe was killed by that defendant, Karen Reed.
She's the victim of a corrupted investigation that was never about the truth.
Another big day here at the Dedham Courthouse.
Fight on. Nothing's breaking me, Matt.
You'll see it all unfold right here on Court TV.
The Karen Reed murder retrial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Welcome back. An alleged victim and former girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs is set to retake the stand this morning as prosecutors are kicking off week 5 of their case against the music mogul. The woman testifying under the pseudonym Jane is expected to continue well into this week, but on Friday she described the frequent sexual performances that she said she participated in with male sex workers, all to please Diddy. She called them hotel nights. It really mirrors what Cassie Ventura testified about the freak-offs.
In a typical hotel night, about how many rounds of the kind of sex that you talked about yesterday with the entertainers and then with Sean would you go through?
I would say every entertainer was different. Maybe sometimes it would be 1 round with one, or it could be up to 3 with another.
Who decided how many rounds you would do in a single hotel night?
Sean.
Who decided how many entertainers you would be with in a single hotel night?
Sean.
Jane also said this about the hotel nights that Combs flew her from Los Angeles to Miami to New York City and Turks and Caicos for drug-fueled sex marathons with other men. The longest marathon was 3.5 days. 3.5 days. Think about that. The shortest one, 12 hours. When asked who did the most work, Jane said it was all me. She also admitted that Diddy paid her rent while she was in this relationship with him, which the rent was 5 figures a month. We're asking, do you believe Jane is a kept woman or a trafficking victim? Let's talk about it. Let's bring in entertainment commentator Holland Reed, former prosecutor Tommy Pope, and licensed clinical social worker and author Sherry Botwin. Good morning to you all. Holland, let me start with you, please. Your thoughts on Jane.
I think Jane seems to be a classic abuse victim in a situation where she was promised a glamorous lifestyle led by perceived opportunities, led by financial control, then, abuse, and then eventually submission to this person in power's will. It's a classic story in Hollywood and in many other industries, even in just your hometown. So even though she did have some inconsistencies with dates and times, I do believe that trauma causes, your memory to be warped, but she still is very credible because she did line up and overlap so much of her story with Cassie's.
Holland, appreciate it. We have a clip from court. We use AI voice technology to do it. This is Jane reading a text that she sent Diddy in September of 2023. This is her pleading to end her role in those hotel nights.
I'm confusing your lust for me as real love. My heart is really in this, and it's breaking. I don't want you to play this role. I don't want to play this role in your life anymore. It's dark, sleazy, and makes me feel disgusted with myself. I feel it's the only reason you have me around and why you pay for the house. I don't want to feel obligated to perform these nights with you in fear of losing the roof over my head. I don't want to keep feeling like that anymore. I'm crying as I type this. We just need to talk like adults and figure out where we'll go from here.
Sherry Botwin, would love to get your analysis on this, please, as someone who works with trauma victims. What do you see when you analyze Jane's testimony?
When I'm listening to what she's saying, I see that she does have some understanding of how she's feeling in this role. She's trying to let him know that she doesn't want to do this anymore. And clearly, with all of the drugs, the manipulation, the fear of losing her home, this is a woman that sounds to me like she feels incredibly trapped. And I give her credit. When I listen to what she's saying to him, she's telling him, I don't want to do this anymore. And she's also, I think, letting him know that these are not things that she wanted to do from the start. But in this message, she's conveying I think her understanding that this is a really, really dangerous situation and she needs to get out.
A great point, Sherry. Thank you for that. Tommy Pope, of course, I want to incorporate your perspective as a former prosecutor. You were a solicitor in South Carolina, famously put away Susan Smith. When you think about the government's case and how important Jane's testimony is to it, your thoughts, please.
I think, and I'm glad you put it in that context, because it's always been frustrating for me knowing how victims react and knowing, like domestic abuse, why didn't she just leave type thing? And jurors come with that mindset, and it's hard sometimes a prosecutor to overcome that. And so my concern for this case is, you talked about the price of the room or the apartment. Doesn't take but one juror to believe, well, she was just doing it for the money, to throw the case. And that's the concern. And so the type of things these ladies have said have to be somehow conveyed to the jury. And hopefully, they'll put up perhaps even a trauma expert to explain that, because otherwise they say, you kind of got what you bargained for. And they said you could have left any time, which, as we know from experience, is not true.
Exactly, Tommy. They would call someone like Sherry Botwin, right? Sherry, you've given this kind of testimony. Exactly, right, to help the layperson on the jury who, thank goodness, has never had a situation like this one, understand where these victims may have been coming from. As you all know, this trial has captured attention all over the world. There are so many references to baby oil and very salacious details. The video went viral of Kid Cudi smoking that cigarette going into the courtroom.
Lots of empty bottles, empty Gatorade bottles, empty liquor bottles, and often baby oil.
Where did you see baby oil?
On the table, on the floor, on the bed, around the room.
He mentioned that when we were out of the country, that Scott's car would be blown up. He wanted his friends to be there to see it.
While you were employed by Mr. Combs, did you ever observe him using drugs?
Yes.
What kinds of drugs?
Weed, ketamine, cocaine, Molly, E.
How frequently did Mr. Combs do drugs, in your observation?
I would say every day.
Did he do drugs during the day?
He would take Percocets throughout the day.
Wow. The testimony, it's been jaw-dropping. It really has. Can you imagine if federal court allowed our cameras in? Holy smokes. Well, one witness after the next, recalling so many alleged bad deeds done at the direction of the once very powerful music executive. Alleged acts. We know all of this is alleged. Up to this point, Cassie Ventura seems to be the most important witness for the federal government. So we're asking, besides Cassie, who do you think is the second most important witness to the government's case? Well, this is a tough one. Tommy Pope, let me start with you on this one, please.
I think when the doctor testifies, she'll be the most important witness to bring back where we're at. I think at some point, you have enough victim witnesses to, as we talked earlier, overlapping testimony. But again, I think sometime you've got to bring it back down to earth, because the jury can almost get numb of the things they're hearing, that this is just commonplace. And if I was famous, I'd be doing the same thing. And so, and that's an extreme. I wasn't speaking for Tommy, of course, but that I think we've got to have something that brings it back down. So I think it's going to be not a victim witness, but perhaps a professional witness.
Oh, that's a really smart answer, Tommy. Love that. Perhaps the trauma therapist, the trauma experts. Sherry Botwin, you are a trauma expert. What do you say? Who's going to be the most important one?
I think it's going to be whoever is the last witness to take the stand. And I'm going to agree with what he's saying. The expert testified at the very beginning of the trial, Dr. Dawn Hughes. She talked a lot about victim-like responses to predatory-like behavior. So what I'm hoping is that when the jury goes back and deliberates, that they go back and they look at the testimony of Dr. Dawn Hughes. What they're going to see is that all of these witnesses are basically saying the same thing. The thing that is, really confusing, I think, for the jury is we don't know anything about any of these witnesses' backstories. We don't know if they already have experienced some type of trauma in childhood, which will definitely affect their responses as an adult when they're in the company of someone like a Sean Combs. So I think it's going to be really important that the jury listens to each of the witnesses. And I think at the end of the day, they're all really important and they're all saying the same thing. They're just saying it in different ways.
I really like that answer too, Sherry. You know, we say in trial advocacy, primacy and recency wins the trial. The first witness, the last witness, fresh in the jury's mind. All right, Holland Reed, take us home, please. Who do you think is the most important case witness besides Cassie?
I'm going to go off on the left a little bit. I think the pattern, and all of the witnesses are establishing a pattern. This, of course, we know this is not just an abuse trial. The abuse is a part of it only to establish how he benefited from the abuse. And all of these people have been amazing witnesses to establish the pattern. And I think that at the end, whether it's the expert, of course, hopefully will drive those points home. I think it's going to be the text messages, the financial exchanges, all of your witnesses that said this happened to me and then I was coerced into this, and he benefited and used all of these tools to get away with what he's been getting away with. You could say allegedly. They're not denying a lot of these acts. It's on video, but now proving that he benefited from the abuse. So I think the pattern and any evidence that supports that pattern is going to be the star witness.
Holland, thank you. Boy, all great answers from all of you on our Power Panel this morning. Thank you so much. I got to say goodbye and thank you to Holland Reed and Sherry Botwin. We look forward to having you both back very soon. Tommy's coming with us. Please do the same at home. Still ahead on opening statements, we are spotlighting the search for the father who allegedly murdered his 3 daughters. He's on the run for more than a week now. How can authorities capture him safely? We're bringing in an expert to talk about that. Plus, cult mom crosses the man she allegedly conspired to kill.
But I was not the focus of that entire argument. Is that correct?
My focus was my family, my wife and my children. I love them and I didn't want them to go through pain.
Is that what you spent all those hours arguing?
Yeah, because I love them and I wanted to work through things with my wife, yes.
Travis, if you're listening, this is your opportunity to turn yourself in. Do the right thing, do what you need to do, and take accountability for your actions. We're not going to go away, we're not going to rest, and we're going to make sure we find you. You will be brought to justice.
In our spotlight this morning, we're talking about the unspeakable deaths of 3 beautiful little sisters and the massive manhunt that's going on right now for their dad. He is believed to have murdered them. Authorities in central Washington state released these new surveillance photos of Travis Decker over the weekend. They say he's been on the run ever since his children were found dead at a campground when they were with him. 5-year-old Olivia, 8-year-old Evelyn, and 9-year-old Peyton were discovered a week ago. Decker had them for visitation, but never brought them home to their mom. And then authorities found his abandoned truck.
The initial information that we were provided following the locating of the vehicle was that the vehicle was unoccupied. And shortly thereafter, we were advised that the bodies of the 3 young girls had been located in relatively close proximity to that vehicle. And Travis was nowhere to be found.
Now, this is ring camera footage of Decker, previously served in the Army. He has extensive survival training. So the question we're asking this morning, how are they going to find this guy? We want to bring in now a former Army intelligence officer. He's also a private investigator and served in the NYPD as well, Manuel Gomez. And with him, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Mario Gallucci. Good morning to you both. Manuel, let me start with you, please. How will these men and women in law enforcement work to capture this guy safely?
Now that the Governor Ferguson has authorized the use of Air National Guard helicopters and attack helicopters, which have thermal imaging, which can pick up his body and also pick up his heat signature at night, we have a better chance. But the problem with this case is you have a guy here who's completely combat trained. And unfortunately, he's one of my brothers. I was in the 18th Airborne, and he belonged to the 503rd Airborne Combat Team. And so we're trained identically alike. So I understand that he has a 3-day head start. A guy like this in the woods, we're required to do a minimum of 10 to 15 miles a day. That means he has a 30 to 45-mile head start. And remember, Julie, the location he was at is called the Pacific Crest Trail, which leads straight into Canada, and there's multiple access points. My belief is that he's already there.
He's in the wind. Wow. Manuel, a follow-up question for you, please. Knowing how highly skilled this man is, knowing that he has survival skills, probably far beyond what the men and women in law enforcement looking for him may have, how dangerous is he to them?
Extremely dangerous, because we're trained to survive, escape, and evade. And remember, a guy like this, we're trained to carry 7 items, which you can carry on your body and nobody will see, and you can survive off for a year. 1, your K-bar. 2, a piece of magnesium. 3, your poncho liner, which is camouflage. 4, 550 cord. 5, a water purification straw. And 6, a backup knife. With these 6 items, he can turn around, and with a compass is number 7, he can stay and survive for a year without anybody finding him. This is what we're trained to do. And the police is not prepared for this. But thank God for Governor Ferguson activating the National Guard assets to hunt it down. We need to have people like me, people like the special ops guys going in there, hunting him down. That's the way you're going to catch him.
Oh boy, Manuel, this is fascinating hearing you speak. Thank you for all that insight. You know, there are a couple ways this could happen, right? This could happen with a capture, that he could be brought in, and then also, he could voluntarily turn himself in. He's been all over the news. Surely he would think that authorities would be looking for him after this event in question. Mario Gallucci, this is where I want to turn to you. As a lawyer, I'm sure you've had circumstances where a defendant has reached out to you and said, can you help me turn myself in safely? Explain to us, please, that process and how you help people like Travis Decker potentially.
Morning, Julie. So you want to work out what's called a voluntary surrender. So you get in touch with the law enforcement that are looking for your client, and you make arrangements to bring them in voluntarily, and it helps your case. You know, when you go before a judge and you're making a bail application, and you could say to the judge that they voluntarily surrendered, they may think differently of posting a bail or not. I mean, in a case like this, he's definitely going to be remanded once caught. Plus, as a defense attorney, you're worried about consciousness of guilt. The more he stays away, the harder it is for you to keep that charge out if this were to go to trial. So it's imperative that he reach out to somebody and try to arrange for a voluntary surrender.
Boy, this is really helpful, Mario. And then as I'm looking, as you're talking on the screen, his devices, it was discovered that he did make that search. Manuel, you called it that he may be in Canada. He searched online how to relocate to Canada, according to the Sheriff's Department. Knowing that, Mario, does that complicate things a little more? Let's say he is in Canada. How might you go about this arrangement then?
So Canada will extradite to the United States. You would need to work out what's called an extradition. And you would tell your client to waive voluntarily extradition to come back and not fight it. If he fights it, now we have to go to the federal government, for the federal government to contact the Canadian government to extradite him back to the United States. It makes it much easier on him to just waive his extradition and come voluntarily back into the jurisdiction if he is in fact Canada.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, I appreciate that, Mario. This is really helpful. Manuel, last question to you, please. We saw the Sheriff's Department warning people in the area of the state of Washington where this guy was living and near that campground to be very alert, to lock up items like, you know, sheds in the backyard, make sure your garage is locked, your front door, keep your blinds open, be very on high alert. Would you kind of explain to us why this warning was given to those folks with this guy and the training that he has?
Well, the reason why is because he could, like I said, he's trained to live off the land, trained to go without food for days and days. And he'll go into somebody's barn and slip up into an attic and sleep there for a month or so. You'll never know he was there. Okay, but I don't believe he's doing that. Just like Mario said, he went and researched into, like you said, to Canada, what it is to assimilate into that culture. He's following military protocol to the letter. He's trying to assimilate, he's evading, and he's escaping. And he had his plan, and he's reconned that area. And this guy, like I said, he's by the Pacific Trail. Julie, there's more than 30 entrances to get into Canada. And he picked the perfect spot because Canada right now has strained relations with the United States due to the political environment with the president. So a lot of these Canadians are not feeling Americans. So going after him full force, I don't think they're going to as much as we hope they will. And that's the problem, and that's his benefit.
Boy, such great analysis. Just brilliant. Manuel Gomez, Mario Gallucci, thank you both so much for the great conversation. We'll keep everybody posted if we get any more information on this case. When we come back, here's what's coming up.
In that context, I never said that Lori is the one who convinced Melanie that I was gay.
So in the second paragraph, it didn't say she's the one that convinced her that I'm gay?
Improper.
Did that refresh your recollection?
Yes, I read a different line. That is the in 251. I did specifically say that I thought
that I had convinced her.
Cult mom is crossing her former nephew, the victim in this case, Brandon Boudreaux. We'll break down what happened in the courtroom when we come back. Now for what's tipping the scales, Lori Vallow Daybell finally goes face-to-face with a man she's accused of conspiring to kill, but not before there were a few fireworks. Daybell, representing herself again, may not be going as well as she had hoped it would go. She brought up her own character in the courtroom, which opened the door for the state to talk about the multiple murders she's already been convicted of. The judge tried warning her, and things got intense. Take a look.
If you're going to introduce how you have great character and good character, we're going to have a short hearing on what evidence that they can bring in to rebut that character, which could include being convicted of 4 murders. So
and would you
talk to your advisory counsel during the break. And
you don't need to yell at me either.
I'm at you, okay?
Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk to me that way. I'm very courteous. I'm very courteous to you.
No, you have been nothing near courteous to me during the course of these proceedings.
There you see, Daybell directed out of the courtroom. The sheriffs took her on out after that. That was so disrespectful of her. And then she got to cross-examine her former nephew, the man she allegedly tried to murder. Take a look.
If you thought that you had just been shot at, were you not worried about standing there in the driveway where someone could drive by again?
The person that shot at me was in the Jeep, and I had seen them leave. Of course, I was scared for my life, but I was told to go back to my house, so that's where I went.
And I know it all happened quickly, but you were not worried about them maybe doing the loop and driving back around?
There's a lot of thoughts going through your mind when that happens.
My goodness, the bullet just coming inches from his head when he was in his car. It was a kill shot, no doubt, that was fired at him. And by the grace of God, he is here to testify against the woman who is alleged to have been behind it. Let's bring in our legal eagles and talk about the court day on Friday. Lots to talk about here. Mario Gallucci and Tommy Pope, where do we begin? How about just your thoughts as we concluded the court day with this woman? Mario, I'll begin with you, please.
So I got to say, in over 3 decades of practicing criminal law, both as a prosecutor and defense attorney, I can tell you I have never, ever seen a pro se defense work, even when it's a lawyer. I mean, there's the old saying that a lawyer who represents himself as a fool for a client. I mean, she absolutely opened the door to the prosecution now using these 4 killings against her. The judge was trying to work out a balance here that, you know, they were not going to come in at this trial because it was too prejudicial. But she's trying to get a character in. I'm a loving, caring person. I could not possibly have conspired to kill you. Well, you killed 4 other people. That's going to be very damaging, very damaging.
Definitely. Oh, you're so right, Mario. Tommy, how about that moment where the judge essentially had her taken out to get her out of this courtroom. My God, that judge has the patience of Job, doesn't he? Ugh.
I think she just went to her holding cell. Mario and I would be held in contempt for future trials. But I thought, you know, I've seen. You remember we talked about in her first trial when she represented herself, it was getting kind of good to her. She was enjoying it. And I think, you know, obviously after being convicted on that one, she's got less to lose than she had even back then. And I think it shows in the courtroom, you know, that conversation between she and the judge, she's lost respect for court, which is part of the deal. If you're going to represent yourself, you got to kind of follow the decorum rules. And so I think it's that combined with, you know, she likes to think she's smart as an attorney. She's done all this reading. And when it's now backfired because she's injected her character, even when he's trying to help her, I think she blew up and, you know, started mouthing at him because really, she's mad it didn't work out the way she had hoped it was. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. I mean, it's hard to represent yourself and be stricken from the courtroom, but I can see at some point if she keeps that up, she'll have to do it. You know, maybe she'll speak through the holding cell door or something.
Right. They're going to have to put her somewhere. She's out of control. Mario Gallucci, let me go back to you. As we watch Cult Mom, I keep thinking, had she not pursued this life of crime, and if she would have maybe thought about law school, I don't think she would have been half bad if she would have gone the route and actually gotten the proper training and education. What do you say?
Look, she's obviously a bright person. She gets up there. She has no problem getting up there and doing it. She did it at 2 trials. She knows how to ask a question. She knows why to ask a question. She just doesn't know when to stop. That's the problem. You know, the judge kept everything out, and, you know, she's letting it all back in. But she's bright. She's bright. She probably would have done very well in law school if she had chosen a career of law as opposed to which she's currently doing now.
Right, the career of crime. Yeah, Mario, I think so. I look at her and I think she's intelligent, she's well-spoken. I think that's maybe what it just fascinates people about her, Tommy Pope. I was just talking with my friends back in Pittsburgh on the radio about this morning, about how it's like you can't look away. You watch this woman and you look at her and you think, oh my God, she did 4 murders, and she did, and she might have attempted a 5th one, depending on what the jury finds here. What do you see when you look at her, Tommy?
You know, it's funny. I thought about the first trial, and we talked about, you know, how surprising it was how well, you know, like Mario said, how well she has conducted herself in the directs and the cross, and I mean, it's almost like you pull for her. You know, I recognize, you know, she's, you know, committed a number of murders, but you pull for her to be successful because she's so close to getting it right as far as an attorney in the courtroom. And so you kind of want it to work out for her, but then she blows up at the judge like that, and you go, well, that's the real her.
You're exactly right. I think there's multiple sides to this woman. We'll be seeing her around 1:30 this afternoon. Mario Gallucci, we got to let you get off to court. Thank you for everything this morning. Tommy's able to come with us for a little while longer. We appreciate that.